What's up guys, Mickle here, and is the SEC about to regulate themselves out of the cryptocurrency industry? In this video, I want to break down something shocking that took place today in a Senate hearing. We have been waiting for a long time for the CFTC to step up to the plate and start finally putting some pressure on Gary Gensler and the SEC. I want to show you what the CFTC said today because it's starting to look like Gary Gensler might be getting kicked out of the cryptocurrency industry. Towards the end of the video, I also want to talk about a settlement in the Ripple SEC case. We have something very interesting to break down, some tweets out of Stuart Alderati and Brad Garlinghouse. I want to share with you guys why tomorrow could be a massive day for this case concluding. Make sure to stick around till the end of the video to see that. You are not going to want to miss it. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. If you want to see more videos just like this, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button down below and turn on bell notifications. These three simple things go such a long way in helping this channel grow, and it really does mean so much to me. If you guys ever need a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange, Uphold, down in the description of this video. With that said though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So this is actually kind of hilarious. I swear I haven't gotten a pimple on my face in like 10 years, but then as soon as I get an HD camera to start recording these videos, boom, a massive pimple in the middle of my face. Now the reason it's so funny is because my old camera would have never picked it up, but then as soon as I get this new camera, boom, it's right in the middle of my face. Kind of funny. Anyway though, let's jump into the content, and I want to start off with the CFTC hearing that actually happened earlier today. Now it's important to note, both the SEC and the CFTC are fighting over cryptocurrency. For a while, I was kind of confused why the CFTC wasn't making more of a stand. We have had Gary Gensler running around for the past year or so screaming that he thinks every single cryptocurrency is a security, even though some of the cryptocurrencies he's claiming are securities clearly aren't. His own agency already said Ethereum wasn't a security. Now he's saying, oh, maybe it is. Meanwhile, the CFTC is already regulating Ethereum. Then you have things like stablecoins. Obviously, stablecoins are not a security. In order for something to be a security, you need to be expecting profit. How are you expecting profit in a stablecoin? Gary Gensler is running around saying stablecoins are securities, and we weren't hearing anything from the CFTC. Well, just today in a hearing, we actually had the CFTC commissioner come out and essentially say, I have no idea what's going on at the SEC. We think Ethereum is a commodity. We think that's obvious, and that's because the SEC pretty much already told us it wasn't a security, and we've been regulating the Ethereum markets. On top of that, he went on to say, we also don't see how stablecoins could be a security. To us, it's pretty obvious they're commodities. Now, what we're seeing right here is we're seeing the CFTC finally starting to step into this thing and start claiming some of the market. Now, this is a big step forward because, trust me, the CFTC is not going to be stopping at Ethereum and stablecoins. They are going to want to get as much power over this industry just like the SEC has been doing. I think it's only a matter of time until the CFTC really starts to take over some of these projects, and I think a massive catalyst for that could be the Ripple SEC case. The SEC takes a profound loss in this case. It is going to open the door to the CFTC taking control of more of the cryptocurrency industry. Now that's going to tie directly into what we're going to talk about later in this video, because this is a massive potential risk for the SEC where they could lose a very large portion of the jurisdiction they've been trying to claim over the past year or so. Anyway though, it's a really good sign that the CFTC is finally stepping up to the plate and playing ball with Gary Gensler. Previously, one of my biggest fears was that Gary Gensler was going to take control of the market simply because no one was going to step up to him and Gary Gensler was going to cheat his way into power. Well, thank God it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and instead it actually looks like Gary Gensler's sketchy tactics could lose him control of this industry. Now, something pretty shocking that we did not know about that Gary Gensler is apparently doing is using multiple email addresses at the SEC. This was reported on by Eleanor Terrett. She has been doing an outstanding job covering the cryptocurrency industry, and she essentially found out that Gary Gensler has multiple different SEC email addresses. She reached out to the SEC to ask why this is the case, but essentially the most likely reason is so that when different people want to hold Gary Gensler accountable and ask for his emails, well, he can actually hide messages in different email addresses. Attorney Fred pointed out another important point. He said this doesn't even take into account his Gmail and Yahoo accounts either. Essentially what attorney Fred is saying here is that it gets a lot sketchier than just Gary Gensler having multiple email addresses for the SEC. He likely has personal email addresses he's been using as well, and it just goes to show what kind of regulator we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with someone who actually wants to help investors. We're not dealing with someone who actually wants to create clear rules for the cryptocurrency industry. Instead, he wants to hide, he wants to be a snake, and he wants to try to do different things behind the scenes to advance his own agendas. So now I want to move on and talk about the Ripple SEC case. And if you watched my video last night, I said yesterday the SEC took 3 massive losses. 1, they lost their attempt to stop Binance from buying Voyager. Essentially, the judge in that case told the SEC, you haven't provided any clear rules for this industry. What makes you think you can step in and stop this transaction? Number 2, the SEC lost big in their first hearing against Grayscale. The judges in that case were literally laughing at the SEC's idea that a spot Bitcoin ETF was any different than a futures ETF. And last of all, I think we all know that the SEC took a massive loss in the Ripple SEC case. Essentially, all their best experts were kicked off the case, and Ripple's most important experts talking about why XRP holders were not expecting a profit from Ripple were allowed to stay in the case. Well, funny enough, Brad Garlinghouse actually tweeted out last night right after my video. He said it's only Tuesday but shaping up to be a not so great week for the SEC. This ruling, talking about the Ripple ruling, Voyager, and Grayscale. So I thought it was pretty funny that Brad Garlinghouse was saying the same exact thing as me. The SEC is losing big in a lot of these cases, and Brad Garlinghouse was actually responding to a Stuart Alderati tweet where Stuart Alderati was essentially saying the SEC got absolutely whooped in this most recent decision in the Ripple case. He's essentially pointing out that the SEC is now facing a massive problem in this case. How is the SEC going to prove that XRP itself is a security if they just lost all their experts who were supposed to be talking about why XRP holders were expecting a return from Ripple? Now, we all know that none of us XRP holders were expecting Ripple to increase the price of our XRP. We all see XRP as a decentralized digital asset, and it's just something that is required to use the XRP ledger, a utility that is going to completely transform our financial system. The SEC was trying to say, oh, that XRP ledger thing, that's not important at all. What these investors were really doing was they were buying XRP as a means of investing in Ripple. Guys, the judge in this case is completely rejecting this idea, and that's why she kicked all those experts off the case. She's not even going to let the SEC try to make this point. So what does this mean for the SEC going forward? Well, this significantly kneecaps them in their attempt to show why XRP fits under Howey. Judge Torres just destroyed the SEC's chance of proving one of the prongs. So what does this mean going forward? Well, this means the SEC is now in a very bad place for summary judgment. Judge Torres is not going to look at the SEC's experts that were critical in proving one of the prongs of Howey. So what is the SEC going to do now? Well, one option is that they can sit back and wait, see what Judge Torres says, see how much Judge Torres rules on at summary judgment, and then just play it from there. No one knows what's going to happen, but judging by what is happening in these rulings leading up to summary judgment, it's fair to say things aren't looking good for the SEC. So now the SEC has to make a risk assessment. How much are they willing to risk going into summary judgment? If they go into summary judgment and Judge Torres makes a ruling that says something like, because XRP meets these qualifications, XRP is not a security. Well, that could be devastating for the SEC, because then every single token out there could go into court and say, well, this is what made XRP not a security. This is why we're not a security either. This is devastating for the SEC and something the SEC can't let happen. Now, there's no telling if that's going to happen. We're still at a point in this case where Ripple could still lose. Based on the facts we're seeing, that is highly unlikely, but it's still an option, so the SEC still has to make a decision here. And this is one of the more fascinating things about this entire case, is the fact that the SEC could really get rid of any damage they could take as an agency by simply settling the case. And it's important to note, it's not just me, it's not just influencers in the XRP community saying there could be a settlement. Attorney Bill, Attorney Fred, Attorney Jeremy Hogan all agreed that we are in prime time for a settlement, and a settlement is a very likely scenario. And the reason a settlement is such a likely scenario is because it would allow the SEC to say, you know what, XRP is not a security, but it's only XRP. This doesn't apply to any other cryptocurrency out there, and we're not even going to make it clear why XRP is not a security. We're just going to say it's not a security, and the rest of the market has to get over it. Now, this is a huge win for the SEC, because yeah, the SEC would lose control over XRP, but there's a lot of other coins out there, and the SEC would still leave those in contention. A loss to Ripple could potentially take those other coins out of contention. A settlement with Ripple leaves them in. The SEC has 300 more cases lined up. The SEC is not going to want to risk those cases. They want to make sure they can start winning some cases. This case against Ripple has not gone well. It's kind of been devastating for the SEC. So why would the SEC not take the out when they can? Obviously, we're dealing with an agency that doesn't use a lot of logic, and what I just described is a lot of logic. The SEC does a lot of weird things that don't make sense. So can we say for sure there's going to be a settlement in the next couple days? Of course not. No one knows. And honestly, we could have a decision in this case by Judge Torres tonight. No one knows what's going to happen, but we know it's coming soon. The point I'm trying to make is the pressure is on for the SEC right now, and a lot of pressure is off Ripple. Right now, most lawyers think there is no way XRP is going to be called a security. Whether or not Ripple gets hit with some sales, that's up in the air, but that's certainly not the win the SEC was waiting for. The SEC needs a win where they are not going to lose precedent over the industry, and for that to happen, they need a settlement at this point. Now, with all that said, I think tomorrow could be an interesting day where there could be a settlement. Almost every single crypto settlement we have seen has been on a Thursday because that's when the SEC commissioners get together and talk about settling cases. So tomorrow could be a very interesting day for a settlement to drop. Now, if we don't see a settlement tomorrow, I think it's the SEC saying we're not settling, we're going to see what Judge Torres has to say. And that's because at this point, if they don't settle tomorrow, well, they don't know if they'll ever have an opportunity to settle again. Judge Torres could come out with summary judgment decision on Tuesday, and the SEC could not get to another Thursday. So I'm going to be watching tomorrow very closely. I have a feeling we'll see a move in the XRP price beforehand, but we'll just have to see what happens. To me, and a lot of lawyers following this case, a settlement makes a ton of sense, but the good news now is it's not like it's going to make things go any faster. This case is going to be over very soon. We just have to wait for summary judgment or a settlement. Anyway, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does mean so much. And for now, Mickle out.